What? Who said that? What's going on at Saints Way Stadium? Well, Arion, what's going on at Saints Way Stadium is in fact the start of the post-game story. That is something that is available to us now that we have beaten Inazuma 11 Go Chrono Stones. And the particular aspect of this video is to show the first things that you would want to do after beating the game. One such example is the fact that new PAL Pack societies have opened up, such as this one with characters that from various Ragnarok teams. Before we get to the actual post-game stuff, I'm going to cover up two loose ends that we could have covered during the main story, but I just missed them. The first being a suburb area of Centrado in the future. I never covered this area on screen, but this has been available to us the entire time, and in fact, it's really fun to explore these areas and see what people are saying during the Ragnarok tournament, because the dialogue of the NPCs changes after every single match to reflect the mood of who just won the previous match. See everyone losing hope after Ragnarok Team Zan in particular wins the first match, and then the hope is starting to gather itself back up. This is of course also the area where Goldie had her chat with Ashley in the flashback, so it's good to have a wander around it and see what's there, including this parallel stone, which again was there the entire time. This is a model viewing one where we can see what Faye and Goldie look like in their future costumes, or at the very least Faye always wears this costume, but it's from the future, while Goldie only wears this costume in that conversation with Ashley. So good to check that one out. The next thing I want to show is something that I could have been covering ages ago, but I kind of rushed my way through this area when I was covering it the first time because it was awkwardly sandwiched into the same episode as like the second big showdown with Alpha. But while you can go to the Inazuma Town in the past, I showed off the school and its two screens, but you can actually go to the shopping area as well and see that the whole thing hasn't even opened up yet. So there is nothing to buy other than a backstreet magic move salesman with, unfortunately, very poor moves on offer. But that's not the end of it. You can visit the Inazuma Park as well, which visually is identical to how it looks 11 years in the future, but it does still have different dialogue and maintains the old Inazuma Park music. So it clearly looks different to the Inazuma Park that we saw in Inazuma 11, 1, 2 and 3, but hey, it's even got its own PAL Pack society with all kinds of people from the FFI in there. It's just a shame that to recruit any of them you need the Flags of the World PAL Pack item, which is estimated to be around a 5% drop. So they are in the game, but don't try and get them, is basically my advice. There's even a parallel stone here in the past that you won't find in the equivalent park in the modern day. So let's just have a quick look.
Hey you, I've got a great goal celebration I've been keeping up my sleeve for today. Get this.
So a nice super hidden goal celebration. That's another thing that our characters can be using. Why on earth not? So I think that's enough for the park anyway. Maybe there's items if I look more closely, but the main thing I want to show in the past is the other area, south of the shopping area. I was going to cut straight there, but I really do like this panoramic view of the entire shopping area being built. There's also a cafe off to the left, which again is there in the present day, but it is now a photo opportunity of something called the Bijou Cafe, so if you need that for PAL packing, then you can. And there's also a dirty bracelet in a chest, but that is somewhat less desired. Now as we head to the Inazuma Tower, everything is visually identical from this point onwards, apart from that not constructed building, but the Inazuma Tower still has some pretty reasonable differences. One is that you cannot actually climb the tower in the past, not sure why, but that's just a thing. The biggest difference is in this hut, because if you go there in the present day, you cannot get in. If you try to go in here in the past, then you can enter, but only if you have the Wi-Fi downloads from this game. Don't worry, it's not a password thing. Just connect your game to the internet once and you will still be able to access the inside of this hut. It will give you the key, and then you can get all kinds of fun things like the move manual for Inazuma Break, the power boots, and a gold chest which I cannot open because I haven't unlocked it in this save file yet. But if you did, it would contain Arch Pegasus Red, a fighting spirit which is a direct copy of Arion's normal fighting spirit, even with the same power, moves, and even the same type. It's air. You'd think it had swapped to fire, but it does exactly the same, it just looks different. And the main thing in here is that there's a level 99 competition route. Every single match here is insanely strong. We don't have the ultimate ticket yet either, but that is definitely something to keep an eye out for. The other benefit of connecting to the Wi-Fi and hitting the download button is that you get some extra special moves from Mr. Veteran in the Ryman Dojo. And this is actually a bit of a dub exclusive thing for Inazuma 11 Go Chrono Stones, because these were all password unlocks in the Japanese version, which explains why what we're receiving here is so utterly broken. They are giving us some of the best moves in the game in 5 goes a pop. Like Great Blaster is a Void type move, which is Victor's final level up move, and it's one of the strongest moves in the whole game. And we've just been given 5 of them simply for connecting to the internet and talking to Mr. Veteran. I think it's probably for the best that I don't use any of these, but I still want to show that they're there for the sake of it, in case you want to use those for yourself, and some of the fighting spirits might come in handy. Easy Breezy Kid, by the way, is an exclusive special move that you can't get otherwise. It is the same as usual Easy Breezy, except Arion is now carrying a goat. It's a reference to the first Inazuma 11 movie, trust me. The final benefit of connecting to Wi-Fi is that you get some exclusive PAL Pack characters. Now, the ones on the first page are pretty different, because these characters from Little Battler's experience, as well as Mecha Mark and the Professor Layton characters, are actually password exclusives. See my own video on the passwords for more guidance on how to get those characters. But in fairness, I do actually want to add Mecha Mark to my team for the rest of Thunderflash, because who wants to keep JP in goal, right? So now that you can finally get Mecha Mark as a playable character after 5 years, of course I'm going to take advantage of that and add him to my team. The rest, well, they're there for you to take a look at. Most of these will require you to have connected to Wi-Fi at least once. Some are easier to get than others. You can even get complete joke characters like Arion's dog Spotter on a human body. This is by far the weirdest recruit in the game. They've even got another one right next to him. It's Spotter as a puppy, as a hat on some random kid called Spot. Some of these are totally random, and that's why they are locked behind Wi-Fi, but they're there for you to obtain. Previously we couldn't get all of them, but now we can. The next thing I want to showcase is at the tower, but this time in the present day, where we actually can scale the ladder, and we can talk to the old sage, who is also known as the Spirit Master. Unfortunately, I can't properly use this right now, but I will just kind of talk through the feature instead. So this was in Inazuma 11 Go, the original one as well, and can only be accessed in the post-game, but this is the way that you apply fighting spirits to the characters that don't get one through story, or you want to give a new fighting spirit to those who did get one in the story. So these are paid for through spirit tokens, which are only accessible as kind of item drops in competition route matches, as well as in a few gold chests. They're actually very hard to come by, surprisingly. You can't buy them. But essentially, if I were to use a spirit token on someone like Aitor, who does not have a fighting spirit, even though he should, then that would get him whatever fighting spirit I pick from my inventory, of which we just downloaded loads from the Wi-Fi Connect. But it doesn't allow them to armorify. You actually need to use a second spirit token to make that possible. I have a particularly good example here with Mecha who already has the Stationer as his fighting spirit, but he does not have the ability to armorify it either because he never did in the story. So as soon as I get a spirit token, I have to actually use that on Mark so that he can armorify the Stationer. And that's very worth doing because the Stationer was actually designed by a fan submitting into some kind of comic. And so was Mecha Mark's design himself, but he was actually designed by someone else. 2 different fans submitted both Mecha Mark and the Stationer, and that's how we got what we got today. But that's off topic, so you need to basically use 2 spirit tokens to fully enhance someone. Good luck finding them. Now here's something else that you can spend kind of disc-shaped tokens on, except this time it's a machine that accepts Playcoins. Now, if you don't know what these are what you get just from walking around the real world with your Nintendo 3DS. You can register up to 1,000 steps per day and that will get you a maximum of 10 Playcoins. I've taken my capture board out of the house for the first time to build up about 20 Playcoins. And generally, if I'm just spending these one by one, then I'm not going to get much in the way of good stuff. You can actually insert up to a maximum of 20 Playcoins, and it is inserting the maximum amount that's going to get you the main stuff. So while I'm spending kind of small increments, I'm going to show you some footage that I recorded on my other 3DS in Wildfire, where I was spending 20 Playcoins in one go, and that time I was earning much better things. This is the only way that you can get move manuals for the likes of God Hand Woo, God Hand, Double God Hand, all kinds of exclusive God Hand V as well. There's 3 different God Hands that you get through this. I don't know why I'm spending 2 at once each time, just spend 1. But and also, so all of those are found inside rainbow capsules. The other big rarities that you find inside a rainbow capsule would be some of the exclusive Miximax moves, like Sword of the King, for example, or Ephemeral Boost. So I'm going to bring this to a close now and just spend all the rest of my Playcoins at once because I'm kind of getting useless rewards here in my actual Thunderflash. I already got Dust Devil and I only spent 2 Playcoins on that. Now I've had to spend 10 on a double, but anyway, as you see, I got much better rewards in my other game where I had more to go through. And hey, Gyro Block is actually a pretty good move. So if you want to get the most out of this, then you're going to have to do a lot of walking with your 3DS on sleep mode, but some of the rewards are definitely worth spending them on. Another thing that I want to show off was kind of available in the main story. It's been there since about chapter 4 or 5-ish, but you were somewhat restricted with what you can do. But now that we're in the post-game, there's no restrictions whatsoever, and this allows us to freely Miximax anybody with anybody. Don't expect to see dramatic visual differences if you just pick people at random, but there are occasionally very good blends that are designed to work with each other. For example, we saw Arion Miximax with Tezcat in the main story, and this is how you would actually get that if you have Tezcat on your team. And similarly, there is an exclusive Miximax between Victor and Bailong as well, which I could technically use, but I do like to keep the actual story required Okita and Chuga. So instead, I'm just going to pick 2 people that kind of deserve to be Miximaxed with each other because they're so commonly associated. What you actually do when Miximaxing is pick 2 of the moves that you would like the other player to have when Miximaxed. Annoyingly, I'm doing this at kind of a bad time, and maybe I'll quit without saving and just do this again later, because Hugh only has 2 moves right now, and they're both not great. But I'm going to select, say for the sake of example, there are 4 moves there, and I wanted those 2. Hit the big OK button, and then we're going to smash these 2 characters' designs together into one comprehensive package, and they can use a bit of each other's movesets along with the usual stat boosts that you get from a Miximax. So this looks kind of believable. I think it is just a coincidence, but it works really well either way. It's Shun with mousy hair. Have an experiment with this and see where you get with it. Alright, you know what, I'm already committed to quitting without saving, so just for the sake of example, let's show. If you click on someone that already has an aura, you can remove it, simple as that, and then that allows us to mess around with some of the best matches, as noted by just above Victor's head there. Arion and Victor have a best mix-and match, which works just as well as, say, Arion with King Arthur, so I would quite like to have Zero Magnum. That's what I'm gaining from this. I didn't even choose these moves, or at least, well, I'm going to, but Zero Magnum is only there if you specifically blend Arion with Victor. This is not in either of their level up movesets, so this is actually a fantastic idea for Arion. And let's have Fire Tornado Double Drive with it, because that is Arion's move in the canon. You just don't get it in the level up moveset. And it looks like this, which is kind of crazy. I like this. I am going to be sticking with the story required mix and matches, like I said before, just to keep things consistent, but that is nice. It's just a shame that when using both Arion and Victor on your team, that means they're both going to look identical if you have both of them mix and matched. And one more, we're already going through all of the Victor ones. I clearly removed Bailong's spirit for a reason. Here's another best mix and match. Again, it is Victor. Spirit big move's not quite as good as Zero Magnum, but it will do. We'll take that along with the Fire Tornado Double Drive for the sake of example. And we get this. It's weird and I don't like it. Why would you mess with my lovely Bailong like this? It looks like an utter tragedy. Now it's time for a bit of proper walkthrough mode, because this is a tip that I'm going to give you that is really going to set you up in the long run. When you're building a team for the post game, you're generally going to want more players than just the story required things. Otherwise things are going to get stale and your team's not going to be unique. Obviously you're going to want to pull from other fun teams like, say, your favourite Protocol Omega player, or just anyone that's in the random overworld. But the problem with Inazuma 11 Go Chrono Stones is that so many characters that you would want in this game are only recruitable if you have items that are somewhat rare drops in competition route matches. And as you know, matches in this game can take upwards of 20 minutes to complete, and so if you're going to go to all that bother and then not get the character that you were hoping for, well, that suddenly comes across as a bit of a waste of time, and you'd want to kind of reduce the amount of time wasting that you're going to go through in a playthrough. So what you want is something called a treasure hunter. Now these are not as effective as you would hope, but it refers basically to any player, of which there's only about 6 or 7 in the whole game, depending on whether you're playing Thunderflash or Wildfire. Wildfire randomly has 1 extra. But Treasure Hunter is a skill, one of the purple moves, which is found on one of these players, and that will increase the chances of items dropping after a match. And trust me, you know, you could have a treasure hunter added to your team within the amount of time that you could have spent just doing a match for no purpose and not recruiting someone. So this is definitely something you want to do as soon as possible. Now the easiest way to do this is to go to Griever's Grotto. Sorry I didn't explain that beforehand, I could imagine this footage was a bit confusing otherwise. But the easiest way that I think to get a treasure hunter is to go to Griever's Grotto and go to that particular match at the top of the first screen, and this guy Mank will join your team. He himself is not a treasure hunter, but he is a requirement to unlock people who are. So now we're going to go to Arthur's Castle and actually get the treasure hunter this time. Now when you do recruit a treasure hunter, you actually have to have them in your team in order for the skill to work. They don't have to be on the pitch, and unfortunately treasure hunter as a skill doesn't stack either, so you can't have several of them to make the effect more useful. But Warwick is one of the 2 players in this Palpak Society who is a treasure hunter. And there's a second one in here as well, so I'm going to recruit them both and let you choose between whichever one you'd rather have for your team. Well, It was a choice between Rick Warwick and Mayfair. Apparently I don't actually have all the requirements needed to get Mayfair, so my decision has been made. Rick Warwick is going to be joining my squad. He doesn't have Treasure Hunter yet. He needs to level up enough so that it's in his moveset, and unfortunately for all of the Treasure Hunters, it's pretty much the last move that they'll ever learn. There's only one exception, and that one exception is the hardest one to recruit. So, sorry Rusty, it's your time to go. Warwick will probably never be used in a match, but he is there purely for his Treasure Hunter ability, and he's going to save us a lot of time in the long run. So we've got a new member of the team who we're never going to actually use in a football battle. How about we get someone who we are going to use in a football battle? Here's your hint. I needed the conversation topic Owari cuisine. What could that mean? If you said adding Katsu to the team as a defender, then you were absolutely right. But first of all, I'm actually going to get pretty much everyone who played with us in the match against the White Deer and Protocol Omega 2.0, because I realise now you were kind of meant to recruit these guys as the story went along. They're all extremely easy to get. One of them you randomly can't get until you've been to the Football Memorial Museum in the final chapter of the game, but pretty much they all just need the tofu that you get by guarantee at the end of the chapter they're introduced in, and then just one photograph, and that's all they need. Specifically, Ichimasa needs love poetry, which you find in Bakumatsu, Japan at the city riverside. Jingo needs Kyoto Ghost Story, which is at the bottom left of Nijo Castle in Ryoma Sakamoto's chapter. Garota needs the conversation topic Generation Gap, so he's the one you can't get until chapter 10 for some reason. This is in the Football Memorial Museum. We're going to get Shishimaru after this, who you unlock with the Dino Cliff photo, so that means you can't get him until Soar's chapter, but it's still easy peasy, just walk up the cliff and he's all yours. Not to say he's especially good, but what with him being a story required member of the team at one point, I think it makes sense to have all of them, at least for a bit. And Tasuke in particular, he needs some of the previous players that we've just recruited, no bother. And two conversation topics. He needs hired help, which you get from the base in Vukulur, and you need travel plans, which you find in Bakumatsu, Japan. Again, pretty easy. And he is a requirement to get Katsu. Katsu is unavailable until the post game. She has been hidden this whole time, but all she needs is some of those previous recruits and the conversation topics Owari cuisine and looks are everything, the latter of which is found in Ryman Dojo. She's a defender and she's actually got some decent moves, and more importantly, she's just one of my favourite characters in the game, so of course she's going to be joining us. Kinoshita's another one that you can't get until you've beaten the game, and pretty much every Palpak society will have like 2 secret characters at the very end that you couldn't get before now, whereas everyone else was fairly widely available. But have a look around at all the different maps in the world and see who you can recruit, because you might just find something amazing like Katsu. And into the team she goes. Who did I replace? No one knows. And the last thing that I want to show to conclude this little setup video is to show the power of trading in this game. This is something that I usually cover in the multiplayer videos, and I still will when I'm eventually able to meet up with Ace 2 Shoes, lockdown notwithstanding. But I'm also going to do a little trade with myself here, because I have been leveling up my Wildfire team in the background. I've got it to about level 70 for the sake of post-game coverage, while the Thunderflash team is now just about to get started. And so, in previous Inazuma 11 games, you were actually really restricted in who you could send in trades, because it's you pretty much couldn't trade anyone that wasn't a random recruit. If they were on any major team, be it a player one or otherwise, then you simply couldn't have them. But this is different in Chrono Stones. It's one of the advantages in that you can pretty much trade anyone who's not actually a member of Ryman. So, just recently in Wildfire, like 2 levels before I hit the maximum level that I could hit before my team would be over-leveled for the post-game coverage. I went to painstaking trouble to get this player in Wildfire, but finally I got him after doing hours and hours of play. I managed to get Alpha. He's only about level 29, so I don't see this as cheating. He is going to be joining my team for the rest of Thunderflash, and I'm going to get him up to scratch with the rest of the team. I kind of knew this was happening, and I recruited him in Wildfire so that I could send him to Thunderflash, and he is going to be an asset in this game. He's even got Feng Huang right out of the gate, and he's able to armor fight too. So that's it for part 63 and everything we needed to know to set up my team for the post-game, and hopefully some tips to set up your team for the post-game. It's next going to be part 64 where we dive into some competition routes and actually start leveling that team up a bit. See you then.